What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. Adesanya's striking accuracy is only 48%. Why did I feel like his accuracy was way higher than that? Maybe we've been a little high on Adesanya. I don't know. I thought his striking accuracy was like one of the best ever. It's not. It is not even close. Jared Cannonier has better striking accuracy than Adesanya. I think Alistair Overeem has the highest. Yeah, Alistair Overeem has the highest. Adesanya isn't even on this list. Sean O'Malley, number 8, 61%. Alex Pereira, 62%. Okay, so the only guy really in a while that could hit Sean Strickland and find, like Adesanya was saying in between rounds, I can't find my jab. Like, I can't hit him with a jab. Like, he could not get Sean Strickland. Like, he couldn't figure him out at all. But Alex Pereira, the number 4 highest striking accuracy, that guy was able to do it. I still can't believe that Sean freaking Strickland just beat Adesanya and won the middleweight championship. What is happening? Like, this is so crazy. And I had a weird feeling that this could happen just because, I don't know, a lot of what I was hearing was pretty much nobody was picking Sean Strickland to win this fight. Like, nobody I knew in MMA media really was picking him. Maybe a handful of people, but for the most part, everybody was pretty set on, like, Adesanya's gonna win this fight. And everybody's talking about, like, the Dricus fight, and we're already, like, kind of looking past Sean a little bit. I feel like a lot of people were, including myself. Just because stylistically, I thought this would be an absolute nightmare for Sean, but it's actually the other way around. And I never thought about it that way. It's like, okay, their styles together. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. And then I'm like, oh, well, it doesn't work for Adesanya. After seeing that, because I didn't think about it. Like, Sean Strickland's defense is so good because he doesn't leave his chin exposed. Obviously, he got caught in the Pereira fight, but for the most part, he doesn't get hit. And you would think, out of everybody in that division, the guy that would be able to hit him would be Adesanya. Probably the most accurate striker in the division. Let me look that up, actually. Let's see. Israel Adesanya striking accuracy. We're just getting right into it today, guys. I gotta talk about this. I have to talk about this fight first. I'm gonna talk about it multiple times in this episode. Most likely. I don't know. Probably. Okay, let's see. Israel Adesanya's striking accuracy. Adesanya's striking accuracy is only 48%. Why did I feel like his accuracy was way higher than that? Maybe we've been a little high on Adesanya. I don't know. I thought his striking accuracy was like one of the best ever. It's not. It is not even close. Jared Cannonier has better striking accuracy than Adesanya. I think Alistair Overeem has the highest. Yeah, Alistair Overeem has the highest. Adesanya isn't even on this list. Sean O'Malley, number 8, 61%. Alex Pereira, 62%. Okay, so the only guy really in a while that could hit Sean Strickland and find, like Adesanya was saying in between rounds, I can't find my jab. Like, I can't hit him with a jab. Like, he could not get Sean Strickland. Like, he couldn't figure him out at all. But Alex Pereira, the number 4 highest striking accuracy, that guy was able to do it. Not shocking. He literally has the 4th highest striking accuracy in the UFC. Now, here's the problem with that, though. That stat is a little inflated because he's only had, I think, 6 UFC fights. So you're comparing him to, you know, Sean O'Malley, who's had more, I think. Maybe not that many more, but he's had, I think, more. And then Cyril Gane is in there, too. Tatiana Suarez is number 3. Anthony Hamilton is number 2. Anthony Hernandez is number 5. Josh Barnett's number 6. Phil Hawes is number 7. Sean O'Malley's number 8, Gunnar Nelson's number 9, and Cyril Gane is number 10. But think about Alistair, and these people all have a minimum of 5 UFC fights. But think about Alistair Overeem, is he's had so many fights in the UFC, so that striking accuracy is actually insane. 74.3% significant strike accuracy for Alistair Overeem. But I was thinking that Israel Adesanya had like really high striking accuracy. And yeah, he really doesn't. It's kind of average. It's 48%. I mean, it's still above average, but it's not that much. I mean, that's crazy. I did not realize that. He's not even on the top 10 for takedown defense either. So all of these things that we keep emphasizing with Adesanya, it's like when you look at the numbers, it's actually it's interesting. It is interesting. Now, I think that here's the thing. I sound like Sean Strickland right now. Here's the thing, guys. I am a huge Adesanya fan. But when people were starting to say that Adesanya is better than a prime Strickland, I can't stop thinking about the fact that Sean Strickland is the UFC middleweight champion. What is going on in the universe right now? This is crazy, guys. Okay, anyways, I don't know. People were saying that Adesanya was better than prime Anderson Silva. Like, prime Adesanya is better than prime Anderson Silva. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that at all. No. And I'm a huge Adesanya. I have an Adesanya t-shirt, guys. I'm a huge Adesanya fan. I love Israel Adesanya. I don't really know. Seems like kind of a weird guy, but as far as a fighter, yeah, huge fan. So no, he is not better than prime Anderson Silva. Here's the thing about prime Anderson Silva. Prime Anderson Silva was terrifying. He wasn't going to outpoint you. He was going to destroy you. That was what Anderson Silva did. I mean, he had some fights that weren't, whatever. But for the most part, Anderson Silva was in there to tear your head off. He has, I believe, way more finishes. I'm gonna look this up because I don't want to get this wrong. But I believe he has more finishes than Adesanya, but I don't know for sure. I'm going to look this up because Adesanya does have a lot of finishes also. Anderson Silva finishes. How many finishes? I'm really curious to see this number because I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see. We're digging into the stats today, guys. I love doing this stuff. I love digging into the stats. Okay, so in MMA, he has 20 wins. There's no way this could be right. This is insane. No way. Okay, so he has 34 wins. Oh, that is right. So 20 of his wins were knockout or TKO. 6 of his wins were submission, and 8 of them were decision. Wow. Yeah. No, Adesanya is not, I'm sorry, guys, but Adesanya is not better than Anderson Silva. You guys are on crack. I'm serious. That's ridiculous, guys. I love Adesanya. That's the thing people don't understand. I'm not hating on Adesanya. But Anderson Silva, what? Yeah. Anderson Silva was better in his prime. And I've always thought that. Never, like, I don't even think we were close to Adesanya being better than Anderson Silva in his prime. I don't think anybody's come close in that division, to be honest. Nobody has come close to Anderson Silva. I'm sorry. No. Okay, Adesanya has 16 wins by knockout. Okay, pretty good. Yeah. 0 submission wins. That's the thing. Adesanya does not have what Anderson Silva had. Anderson Silva could beat you anywhere he wanted to, but most likely was going to knock you out, but could beat you everywhere else too. He could submit you. He could knock you out. Whatever he wanted to do, he could beat you by decision. That is the thing that Adesanya had, or that Anderson Silva had, that Adesanya does not have. Adesanya have we ever seen him initiate wrestling in a fight? Have we ever seen him submit someone off his back? No. And it will probably never happen. So that's the difference. Anderson Silva was a complete fighter. Adesanya, while I love Adesanya, and he's arguably one of the best strikers ever in the UFC, just with like his variety of attacks and his stance switching, his footwork, his feints, all those little things that he does. His kicks are absolutely insane. I would put him in the conversation of Edson Barboza and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I would put him in that conversation as far as strikers go. But as far as fighters, Anderson Silva was a better MMA fighter than Israel Adesanya. 100%. 100%. So you cannot tell me that Adesanya was... And there's even still people trying to say this even after he lost to Sean Strickland. And it's like, yeah, I don't think Anderson Silva would have lost to Sean Strickland. I don't think so. So, yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about prime Anderson Silva, by the way. I'm not talking about Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva right now would get worked by Sean Strickland. No. But prime Anderson Silva? No. You couldn't touch that guy. He had an insane win streak. And yeah, it's just almost disrespectful to Anderson Silva to even say that, I think. I've watched a lot of Anderson Silva fights. Like, I know I came into MMA later, but Anderson Silva and GSP were two of the guys that I went back and watched a lot of their fights. So when I see the name Anderson Silva, like, I get excited. Like, I am a huge Anderson Silva, but I'm also a huge Adesanya fan. And that's why I was so excited for this fight, because I don't know. I had a feeling that there was going to come a point where Israel Adesanya just, he's done, you know, like his title reign has to come to an end at some point. And for all fighters, it's either going to end in a few different ways. It's either going to be they get cut from the UFC, or it's going to be they retire with the belt. That's ideal. Most people don't do it. Amanda Nunes, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah, most people don't do that. But when you're as active as a champion as Adesanya is, yeah, it's hard to hold on to that belt, because he's fought 5 times in the last 2 years as champ. And, you know, he lost one of those fights. He lost the fight to Jan at light heavyweight. So overall, his career, it's been really, really dominant, but it has to come to an end at some point. And it's either you retire or you lose the belt, and then hopefully, you know, you can come back with a win, but sometimes that win just doesn't happen. So it just, I don't know, we see it all the time. But I don't think that's where Adesanya's at. I think it depends on what route he goes. I do think that they're probably going to do an immediate rematch. I think he deserves that. I've seen people saying that Israel Adesanya doesn't deserve an immediate rematch, and I don't agree with that. I think Adesanya absolutely deserves an immediate rematch. Or maybe not immediate, but I think he deserves a rematch. We'll say that. But, sorry, my nose is itching. But I think, yeah, Adesanya, I think he deserves a rematch. I think that it's going to be hard for him to avenge this loss. This is probably going to be the hardest fight for Adesanya. The second fight. I think the second fight is going to be actually even more difficult for him, because here's the thing. Sean Strickland, I don't know if he knew he was going to win that way. I don't think that was their game plan. I think they planned on doing some wrestling in this fight, and I don't know for sure. I'm not Eric Nixick, so I don't know what their game plan was, but I know that Sean Strickland now knows that he can beat one of the best strikers in the UFC in a stand-up fight. So he is probably going to double down on his striking now. And Eric Nixick has been on such a tear. He has been on such a tear. I mean, think about it. Francis Ngannou, Dan Ige, Brad Tavares. They're all coming off wins. Manel Kape. And now we've got Sean Strickland too. So that's two pretty huge wins in one night for Eric Nixick. Manel Kape and Sean Strickland. That is insanely impressive. So, and to have two champions, like, that's insane. This is like kind of similar to the Trevor Whitman thing, you know, when Rose was champ and Kamaru Usman was champ, and they both landed head kicks in the same night. Like, this is very reminiscent of that to me, but in an even bigger way, because Sean Strickland not only beat Adesanya, but he was a huge underdog. He was, I can't remember what the odds were. He was maybe like plus 475, and Israel Adesanya was a minus 600 favorite, and Sean overcame the odds. So to me, this is even more impressive than the Trevor Whitman run, because Trevor Whitman had, you know, Rose Namajunas, he had Kamaru Usman on that one card, and Kamaru Usman, I believe, was a favorite in that fight. And Rose Namajunas might have been too, I don't remember, but it wasn't the same. Like, this is crazy that Sean Strickland beat Adesanya. This is so crazy. It's such a huge upset. And I know there have been other upsets before, probably, that you could argue have been even bigger than this, but not many. Not many. Because the difference in skill level, when you look at it, is huge in the striking. Like, you don't expect it. You don't expect anybody to beat Adesanya on the feet. And Sean Strickland put on an absolute clinic on Adesanya on the feet. So, yeah, Eric Nixick is doing some incredible work over there. And even Manel Kape. So that fight, I knew he would win that fight just because he has so much more experience. And he's a tricky guy. Like, he switches stances a lot. He likes to move around. He likes to showboat a little bit. He's just, you know, he's different. He's a tricky fighter to figure out. So, but Felipe dos Santos, he looked incredible. He looked like a little bit of Charles Oliveira, honestly, with the blonde hair and just the way that he moves. And oh my God, that was such a great fight. Yeah, that was really, really a fun fight. But yeah, I just wanted to say that about Eric Nixick, because he's got, Francis Ngannou, Manel Kape, Dan Ige, Brad Tavares, Sean Strickland. He's got all these guys that are just, they're killing it right now. They're all coming off wins, and it's incredible. And it's something that happens a lot, is that when a gym has momentum, it feeds the other fighters. So when one fighter gets a win, then another one gets a win, and that momentum usually will carry. So I think that's a good thing. And I think that he does a good job of controlling emotions too. With like, okay, we got the win over Manel Kape. Let's not get too cocky with the next fight, you know, because that happens sometimes. You know, you win one fight and then You know, you get too excited, and then the next fight they make a mistake or whatever happens. And ultimately it's the fighter in there. It's not the coach. But the coach has such a big impact. And it's mostly not even when they're in the cage. Most of the impact that the coach is having is all that time leading up to the fight. So yeah, there are a lot of good things that are happening in the cage, and a lot of good advice usually is being given. But ultimately, you know, a lot of the work that they do is behind the scenes. You don't really see it. And I think that, yeah, like, of course it's the fighter is the one in there. The fighter is the one that is doing the thing. They're in there in the cage, putting basically their life on the line, for the sport. But the coach, I feel like we need to appreciate these coaches more, because being a coach is not easy, especially when you're coaching these high-level athletes. Coaching high-level athletes requires not only, like, you can't just get into coaching like, sure, you're a fighter, okay, and just because you were a great fighter doesn't mean that you're going to be a great coach, you know. And so sometimes, you know, we see a fighter become a coach and maybe they don't do so well as a coach, who knows. But I think that in order to be a coach, you have to have a certain level of knowledge of the sport, not only just in knowing how to fight, but also understanding how to promote fighters, how the rankings work, and paying attention to what's going on in the sport. So paying attention to UFC, paying attention to PFL, all these different organizations, and paying attention to what the heck is going on, and knowing the business side of the sport and also the mental side of the sport is so important. These coaches that understand the mental just as well as they understand the fighting, the training, the physical aspect of it, the weight cutting, the nutrition, they understand the mental as well or better than they understand those things, then you have a recipe for an absolute monster of a coach. And I think that's what Eric Nicksick has. And there are coaches out there that have that, and they're creating absolute monsters in the gym. So I think that's the most important thing too with coaching, is the mental side of it, and just making sure that the fighter understands what needs to be done. They're disciplined. They have the right mentality going into it. And that's huge because, you know, it's a hard job. I mean, being a coach, gosh, it's got to be just crazy. And the level of leadership that a coach has to have too. And not only being able to train a fighter, to teach them, you know, how to throw a spinning back kick or whatever, not only being able to do that, but also being able to lead, and a lot of times lead by example. You know, if they're telling you that you need to be waking up at 5 a.m. and doing all this stuff, you better be doing it too, because a fighter is going to look at you and look at your discipline and see, oh, well, you know what? They wake up at 5 a.m. or whatever, and they work out every single day, or they do this, or they're eating really healthy and all this kind of stuff. So they look at that. So if you're setting a good example as a coach, then your fighters are going to be led a lot better by that example. And I think that's something that is pretty common when you look at all these coaches. You look at Eric Nicksick, you look at Trevor Whitman, you look at these guys, and it's really, really obvious that they put just as much discipline into coaching as they're expecting their fighter to put out in fighting. And I think that's a big thing too with Tim Welch. He's another great example of a coach that you could argue is in the conversation for Coach of the Year too. I mean, I think Tim Welch and Eric Nicksick are both two of the most standout coaches to me this year in MMA. And it is a lot, has to do with their mental, and it has to do with just, yeah, their leadership is incredible, and they're leading by example. They're putting in probably more work than their fighter is, just in a different way. And you can see it. You can see when a coach really cares about their fighters. You can tell. And that is the biggest thing that is going to attract top level talent to a gym or to a coach, is they see a coach that actually cares about them and wants to see them succeed, and puts that extra time and energy into, you know, helping them get ready for possibly the biggest moment of their life. Like Sean Strickland was getting ready for the biggest moment of his life. So Eric Nicksick was not only helping him train for a fight, he was helping train Sean Strickland to get ready for the biggest moment of his life ever. That's insane, guys. Like, this is so crazy. And yeah, I just think that Eric Nicksick did a fantastic job with getting Sean Strickland to just really, really develop and grow as a fighter. I think it has a lot to do with his coaching. I really do. I think Sean Strickland's a great fighter no matter what, no matter where he's training. But you notice a difference with him training under Eric Nicksick. He's evolved a lot, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him. So let's go ahead and break down the card real quick. So we had the first fight was Kevin Jousset versus Kiefer Crosby. Kevin Jousset ended up winning that fight. So yeah, I was kind of expecting that. He's city kickboxing guy. He has a loss to JDM, so not any like big wins, but he's got, he's faced tough competition. Now he's 9-2. So yeah, that's a good win. That's a welterweight fight too. So it's good to see some good talent, some good kickboxers and fighters in welterweight. So yeah, not much to say about that one. And I think that was I can't remember if that was a first round or second round finish. Let me see. Yeah, that was a first round submission. Yep. And then there was another first round, first round submission, Shane Young versus Gabriel Miranda. Yeah, like I said on the last episode, I was kind of leaning toward Gabriel Miranda on this one because he is a submission artist. The last fight that he lost, he's only lost 6 fights out of like 20 something. And yeah, because he was 16-6, so now he's 17-6, which is actually a really good record, especially at featherweight. And he's a Brazilian guy. He's got crazy submissions. I think most of his wins have been submissions. And maybe the other one was like a knockout, or I think he only has like one other fight that wasn't a submission that he won. So crazy submission rate. Yeah, I don't know. He's 33, so we'll see. I don't know if title run is in his future. I'm not sure. But I don't know. He's been in there with Benoit Saint Denis, who he's on a tear right now. So he did lose that fight. That was the fight before this that he lost, but he lost by decision, so it's not like he got finished. And that was at lightweight. So, because, yeah, I think Saint Denis is a lightweight. So, yeah, I don't know. But he's a featherweight now, so we'll see. We'll see what's next for him. But, yeah, that was a good fight. That was fun. It sucks to see Shane Young lose again because, yeah, that's tough. I think this is his fourth loss in a row, Shane Young. So I don't know what's next for him. It just sucks. He's never been submitted before, and he, of course, got submitted by this submission artist. I mean, this guy, that's what this guy does. He's a submission specialist. So I'm not surprised at all this happened. I mean, yeah, Shane had never been submitted before, but he doesn't have the highest level of jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, I don't know. That really sucks for him. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he stays in the UFC. I mean, honestly, a 4-fight losing streak, that sucks. But who knows? We'll see. He is kind of a draw. I mean, especially with the Australian fans. So I don't know. And then after that was, I think, this was Mike Mathitha versus Charlie Radke, Blood Diamond, I guess. I guess that's his name. I don't know. There's no way that's his real name. Oh, yeah, his name's Mike Mathitha. That's what I thought. I'm like, why is it? On the UFC website, it has him listed, his name as Blood Diamond. Do they not know his name? That's hilarious. Yeah, so he fought Charles Radke. Yeah, him being a lot less experienced in this fight, I kind of had a feeling he was going to lose. He was on a 2-fight losing streak already, and he's a city kickboxing guy, so they're probably trying to hype him up, but unfortunately, I mean, that's a tough matchup for him, really. I mean, Charles Radke was on a 4-fight win streak. He's got more experience. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they would feed him to that in his hometown, but and Charles Radke, yeah, I mean, he won the fight, clearly. It wasn't the most, blowout performance, but it was a good fight. I mean, he won the fight, so he had some things to say afterwards that a lot of people didn't like, but some of these fighters, the things that they say, it's pretty funny. But yeah, he got that win, which, yeah, like I said, didn't surprise me at all. Okay, next fight on the card, Nasrat versus Lena Quinones. Yeah, I think I went with Nasrat in my predictions on this one. Just because, yeah, experience, and he was coming off a win, so he had a little bit of momentum. Yeah, he trains at TriStar, I believe, and Quinones is good too, though, but I just had a feeling with their experience, looking at their wins kind of side by side, that Nasrat would end up getting this one, which he did. Via decision. It was a good fight, though. It was a really fun fight, and yeah, they both did a great job, honestly. I was impressed with Landon too, so really good fight, really fun fight. And that's lightweight. When you get to that high level of competition, like, you're gonna have fights that they're close. And it was pretty clear that Nasrat won, in my opinion, but it was still it was a back and forth fight. It was fun. And then Jamie Mullarkey versus John Makdessi. Yeah, that one, kind of had a feeling Mullarkey was going to win that one too. That was another fun fight. I really enjoyed that one too. And then Jack Jenkins versus Chepe Mariscal. So this fight, I was a little frustrated because Jack Jenkins ended up injuring himself. I think he dislocated his elbow or something crazy. And he had to he was done. So Chepe Mariscal won the fight due to an injury, which you never really want to see. But at the same time, I mean, you won the fight fair and square. When that happens, you win the fight. So it sucks for Jack Jenkins, though. I mean, that's just not a fun way to lose, I would imagine, is by an injury. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But he was doing great up until then, and it was a fun fight. So I don't know. Hopefully they'll fight again at some point. That was a fun one. Carlos Ulberg versus Dawoon Jung. Carlos Ulberg won this fight, and it was actually by submission. It was an interesting fight. So he actually didn't know that he won by submission until after the fight was over. So it technically went all 3 rounds, but they did not see Jung tap. So when they went back and replayed the footage, they realized that he had tapped. I think it was 4 minutes 49 seconds into the 3rd round. That's crazy. And I didn't see him tap either. I couldn't really tell what was going on. I saw him kind of move, but I didn't realize that he was actually tapping. So that was kind of crazy. And when you look at the footage back, it was pretty clear he tapped. So obviously they had to go back. And I thought that was cool they did that. With it, you never know what's going to happen when things like that go down. You never know if they're going to give the fighter the actual accurate win on their record. So thankfully they did, but you never know. Like I said, but that was a fun fight. He looked really, really good in that fight, and it wasn't an easy fight. It really wasn't. That guy has a chin. So, that was a good fight, but I wasn't surprised that he won that one. I thought he looked great. I mean, I don't know. I think they were saying he's had issues with cardio before, or maybe he just doesn't really see past the first round a lot of times. So I was curious about that too. But yeah, he looked great. His cardio looked like it was good. So yeah, that was a very good win for him. I'm very excited to see him fight again. That was a very good win. Very impressive performance. And then going to the main card. So Tyson Pedro versus Anton Turkalj, I think is his name. Sorry guys, I butcher some of these, but that's his name. Anton Turkalj. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever his name. However you say it, that's how I'm going to say it. But anyways, this was absolute destruction. Oh, and you know what that guy's nickname is? Is the Pleasure Man. Ew. Don't like that name. Don't like it. I don't know. It's just not for me. That's a no for me, dog, okay? I do not want, I do not ever want to say the Pleasure Man again after this episode. So. But anyways, Tyson Pedro, now he is 10-4. Glad he bounced back with a win. He actually has wins over Paul Craig and Khalil Roundtree. So he's an impressive guy. He definitely has a bright future, and he wasn't like a heavy favorite in this fight. Like, this was a closely matched fight, and he went out there and absolutely destroyed Anton. He destroyed him. Yeah, it was destruction. 2 minutes and 12 seconds into the first round. So, yeah. Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. This was a really fun heavyweight fight. Didn't last very long. 1 minute, 22 seconds. Justin Tafa ended up getting a knockout. It's kind of what I expected. Especially with his brother getting a win not too long ago. You know, now they got some momentum. Like I was saying earlier, the momentum, it does have an effect. It does have an effect. Once one team member, family member wins, then it's a lot more likely that the other one is. So yeah, and he's now on a 3-fight win streak. So that's exciting. He still has a 100% finish rate, which is absolutely nuts. So yeah. It was crazy though. There was another eye poke early in the fight, which is insane that happened again. Luckily, it wasn't as bad as the first one, because the first one was real bad. But it happened again. So it's like, ugh. I just feel like they could easily get rid of eye pokes. Like I saw Jim Miller on Instagram. He was talking about how like now you can have a moist towel when you get eye poked, and that's gonna stop eye pokes. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. So they have a new rule with eye pokes to where they give you, I guess, like a warm, like wet towel to what is that gonna do? Like, if your retina is destroyed, like what is that gonna do? You know? How about you just get rid of eye pokes? Because, yeah, they're illegal, but they're really not until you do 2 or 3 of them right now. The way that it is right now, unless it's a horrifying eye poke, unless it's like the worst eye poke ever, then they might do a no contest or they might take a point. But for the most part, when we see eye pokes, it's not until the 2nd or 3rd time, sometimes even the 4th time, that the ref even does anything about it. So it's like, should we just start taking a point for, I don't know about the first one, maybe the second eye poke, take a point automatically? I think that is, yeah, 100%. I could even argue taking a point for the first one. I don't know. I just think that, like, yeah, there are some that are not intentional. And I know some people were arguing about the gloves causing the eye pokes, which, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if there were any eye pokes in the bare knuckle fights. I can't remember. But I imagine you're still going to have them regardless. And I think it's because that you can get away with one. Really. You can. You kind of can. You can get away with pretty much one eye poke in a fight. So I think that, I don't know, maybe we should consider making, the first eye poke, you lose a point. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what we should do, but I'm saying that we should probably think about doing it. And I don't know, maybe try it out for a little while. See if it stops the eye pokes. I bet you it does. I bet you it does. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. I'll have to talk to some fighters and see what they think about that. Because, yeah, I don't know. They're the ones that are in there, so they probably have a better perspective than me. But, yeah. So, flyweight, Manel Kape versus Felipe dos Santos. That was the fight after that. This was not the co-main event, but the fight before the co-main event. So, I was really excited for this fight, and I was excited for it because I knew it was going to be a banger because it's flyweight. Manel Kape's really fun to watch. Felipe dos Santos, he's a new UFC fighter. His debut, he was supposed to be on Contender Series, and he's training out of Shoot Box. He literally looks like a miniature version of Charles Oliveira. He's only 22 years old, so he's super young, and his last fight was November, so almost a year ago. He fought in LFA. He's undefeated going into this fight. Unfortunately, now he is not undefeated. He's 7-1 now. But how many times have we seen people make their UFC debut, lose their debut, and then come back an absolute monster? I can think of somebody that I just talked to not too long ago, Garrett Armfield. He made his UFC debut. He took a fight on short notice versus David Onama and lost to David Onama. But that fight was at featherweight, so it was a weight division above him. And David Onama is huge, first of all, for either of those weight classes. He's huge for featherweight, and he would be huge at bantamweight. So then Garrett Armfield, almost a year later, at UFC Singapore, Max Holloway versus Korean Zombie. On that card, he wins via knockout in the first round. And it's super impressive performance. Super impressive. So, and like great boxing. He's also got great wrestling. So you see this happen sometimes where their debut, because a lot of times they take their debut on short notice. That's how they get in the UFC sometimes. Because, you just got to stay ready and you got to make sure that when that opportunity comes that you can do it. So a lot of times these fighters do take their debut on short notice. And that's kind of what he had to do. Either it was going to be that or Contender Series. So yeah, it was really, really cool to see. And I had Garrett Armfield on my podcast, by the way. I'll throw in a clip at the end. So that way you guys can kind of see how the conversation went. But yeah, check that out on my other channel, Bre Eckert, on YouTube. And also if you follow me on Instagram, you can find all my stuff. So my Instagram, by the way, is bre.eckert. So that is the best way to engage with me, interact with me, and see what else I am up to, because this is not the only platform that I'm on. This is not the only show that I'm on. I also have other podcasts that I do. So make sure to check me out on Instagram if you want to follow all of my content. But anyways, back to the fights. Yeah, so Felipe dos Santos looked incredible. I thought it was a close fight. I wasn't sure if maybe the judges were going to give it to Felipe, but I scored it for Manel Kape. I thought he won the fight pretty clearly. But it was close. It was a good fight. And yeah, if anything, it just makes me more excited to see more from Felipe dos Santos and see how he does matched up with somebody that's a little bit more at his level, because he was a huge underdog going into that fight. And that's kind of why I brought up the Garrett Armfield scenario, because he was a huge underdog going into that fight too. Took the fight on really short notice. And this was the same thing for Felipe, took it on short notice. And I think we're going to see a very impressive win from him in his next fight. I really do. So, and here's the thing. If he would have gone to Contender Series, then he would have just absolutely destroyed whoever was in front of him. And then when he goes to the UFC, people will be like, okay, well, let's see how he does against somebody legit. Okay, well, we already know how he does against somebody legit. He just fought Manel Kape and almost won. So, I mean, yeah, he's got so much talent. I'm really excited to see him in the UFC. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that, because even though Manel Kape won the fight, and Manel Kape looks great too, don't get me wrong. They both looked incredible in there. But Felipe dos Santos, he did a lot better than I thought he was going to do. And he did a lot better than most people probably would have expected, looking at the record side by side, looking at their experience. Manel Kape's got a lot of UFC experience. Felipe has zero UFC experience. So it's like, yeah, I didn't know what to expect there. But It was a fun fight. And then the co-main event, Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov. Yeah, rough night at the office for Bam Bam, and this is now his third loss in a row, so that sucks. Yeah, he hasn't won a fight since the Derek Lewis fight, so that's tough. I really like Tai Tuivasa. I really like him. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he should take some notes from Derek Lewis and get the six-pack going. I don't know. It's working for Derek Lewis. I'm just saying. It's, no, I don't know. I think Justin Tafa. Gosh, him and Tai Tuivasa are like, I get them mixed up all the time. It's so weird. And also, Justin Tafa reminds me a lot of Mark Hunt, by the way. A lot of Mark Hunt. It's kind of crazy. And it's interesting, actually, because, so Justin Tafa and Austin Lane, Justin Tafa, I don't know how tall he is. Let me see if I can find it real quick. He's, 6 feet tall. And his opponent, Austin Lane, was 6'6". And Tai Tuivasa supposedly is 6'2". I think he's shorter than that. I don't think he's 6'2". There's no way. I'm checking it out because I don't buy it. Why is my keyboard not cooperating? Jesus. Tai Tuivasa. You know how guys lie about their height? I'm looking it up. Multiple sources. 6'2". Man, Volkov is huge. I thought Tai Tuivasa was like 5'10" in there. He looked 5'10" next to Alex Volkov. Alex Volkov is ginormous. He's 6'7", but he looks like I don't know. Yeah. Scary guy. Wouldn't want to meet that guy in a back alley. Could you imagine? You see Alex Volkov just like staring at you in the dark. And he's wearing like a big jacket. And it's like, oh, I'm going to die. This guy's going to kill me. Yeah, scary guy. But he seems like really, really nice and humble. But looks absolutely terrible. He kind of like Pereira. Pereira, you just look at him and you're like, wow, that guy is scary. Like, he's very scary. Just very intimidating, you know? And that has a lot to do with their game. Like, imagine being Tai Tuivasa and you're staring at Alex Volkov in the octagon. Like, that's got to be terrifying. A big Russian guy that's huge. Not only is he huge, but he's also in really good shape. Like, that's the crazy thing, too. For heavyweight, he's in really good shape. And he moves really well, too. He's got a ton of MMA experience. This was his 47th MMA fight. So, pretty insane level of experience. He's 34. So he's actually really not even that old, especially for the heavyweight division, because a lot of guys, for some reason, the heavyweight division, a lot of guys can go until they're, you know, in their late 30s, early 40s. So we'll see. I don't know. He hasn't been knocked out in 5 years. So I don't know. He's now on a 3-fight win streak. I could see him fighting somebody like Aspinall or maybe Gone again. Has he fought? Let me look this up. Has he fought Tom Aspinall? I don't know. I'm blanking right now. Let's take a look-see. Yeah. Tom Aspinall beat him. Oh, that was when he got submitted. Okay. Which that checks out. That checks out. Who thought Volkov was going to win by submission? I would not have guessed that. I would have guessed that he would have knocked Tai Tuivasa out or won by decision. I don't know. But that's kind of actually a smart game plan for Tai Tuivasa, I think. So Alex Volkov has lost to both Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. I don't know. A rematch with Tom Aspinall kind of sounds terrifying to me because since that fight, Tom Aspinall has only gotten better. So I don't know. I don't know about that. Cyril Gane, that I think is a little bit more exciting, or he could rematch Curtis Blades, but I think Curtis Blades will just do exactly what he did the last time. But here's the thing about the Curtis Blades fight. That fight was in a smaller cage. So, I don't know, maybe in a bigger cage, Volkov has a better chance just because a lot of what Volkov does is he throws a lot of teeps, he throws a lot of side kicks and stuff like that to like he uses his range really well. That's one of the biggest things that he does that has made him so successful is just he knows he's got that huge height advantage. He knows he has that range and he uses it very well. And he's got huge leg reach too. I don't know what the numbers are on his reach, but his legs are really long. So he uses those teeps and he uses that to maintain that distance so he can, avoid you getting inside. He can hit you from far away. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe in a bigger cage that fight looks different. I don't know. It's something worth talking about, I think, because, yeah, that Curtis Blades fight, that was during COVID. That's when they were doing the fights at the Apex. So, yeah, I don't know. But Volkov looked really good against Tuivasa, even with eating those leg kicks. Like, it didn't really even slow him down. So... And his leg was, Tai was doing a good job of throwing those leg kicks. He was beating up that leg pretty bad. But, yeah, Volkov is good. Volkov is so good. I don't know if he'll ever be champ, but he's one of the best. One of the best at heavyweight right now, in my opinion, and has been for a while. Here's the thing though, look at his losses. His losses were to Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane, Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis. So these are all top 5 guys that he's lost to. At least since he's been in the UFC. He had some losses before that in Bellator and M1. But yeah, his resume is absolutely insane. He's got wins over Rosenstruck. He's got wins over Overeem, Fabricio Verdum, Roy Nelson. He's got some pretty notable wins, but yeah, I don't know what you do with him. I don't know. That division is interesting. I'm going to look at the rankings right now. Heavyweight. Obviously, John Jones is the champ. I don't see him having anything for John Jones, but you never know. He is a huge heavyweight. So you never know. But yeah, ultimately, I think Volkov versus John Jones, I think John Jones wins that fight. I think he takes him down and submits him. But here's the thing, though. Volkov's not as easy to take down as Cyril Gane. But I do think ultimately John could do it. I think he could do it. I think John has better leg kicks too. But at heavyweight, I don't know. Okay, I'm going on a tangent now. I'm looking at the heavyweight rankings. Cyril Gane's number 1, obviously. Pavlovich number 2, tied for number 1 with Cyril Gane. I keep forgetting about Pavlovich. Yeah, we need to talk about Pavlovich more. Because I do think, and I've said this before, I think John Jones versus Stipe is a retirement fight. I think that there is going to be some kind of vacant title situation or interim belt. Who knows? Yeah, honestly, who knows? I think that the only way that John would be willing to stay at heavyweight and stay in the UFC is if he had a really big name get a win and work their way to the title shot. I don't know if there's any big names at heavyweight right now, in the top 5. I don't think so. So it's going to be tough, for John to be motivated to stay there. I think the Francis fight is the only thing that's going to keep him, in MMA. Honestly, I don't think there's really anything left for him to do. He doesn't need to beat Sergey Pavlovich. He doesn't need to beat Tom Aspinall. He doesn't need to do any of that, I don't think, to solidify his legacy, even at just heavyweight. Because he went out there and he beat Cyril Gane. He became the champ. So he's won both belts. What else does he need to do? I don't know. The Francis fight, to me, is the only one that really stands out. Yeah, that's the only fight, in my opinion, in MMA that makes sense for Jon Jones after Stipe. If he beats Stipe, who knows? Stipe could win. We just saw Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya. So I am not going to count people out. Okay? Stipe could win the fight. He could win the fight, but most likely do I think he's going to? No. I think Jon Jones is probably going to win. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But Stipe's still dangerous. Stipe is still a dangerous guy. He's still got a ton of power. He's huge. He has a good physique. He's very athletic. He's got great cardio. He's got wrestling. He's got striking. He's a powerhouse of a fighter, Stipe is. And I think people kind of forget that. They lose one fight and then everybody kind of forgets who they are. So I don't think this is to me a more difficult fight for Jon than Cyril Gane was. I actually really do believe that. I think Cyril Gane stylistically was an easier matchup for Jon than Stipe. I think Stipe stylistically is a much harder matchup. I think this fight might even go to decision, but ultimately I think Jon will win. I do think so. But we'll see. Let's see, the main event, Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. I already kind of went over this. Yeah. Surprising. Surprising is the word that comes to mind thinking about. Sean Strickland is the UFC middleweight champion. And here's the thing. I said this. I commented this on somebody posted something about Sean Strickland, and I commented, I'm like, yeah, this is... Sean Strickland beat Adesanya in basically the simplest way possible. And somebody commented, and they were like, actually, what he did wasn't... It's like, okay, I get it. It wasn't simple in the sense of like, yes, I realized the technique, the game plan, I realized all of that there. I realized that. The feints, everything that he was doing. Like he was feinting a teep kick at one point. Like there were some really cool things that he did that people who that understand the technique, they see that. Like I see the little things that he did, trust me. So I know it wasn't simple in the sense of like boxing, but in the sense of MMA, he beat Adesanya in a very simple way that we don't see very often. How often do you see, please answer me this, how often do you see a Philly shell style work in MMA? That's the first question. Answer that question first. The next question is, when do you see a basically well-rounded fighter, not really, I don't know if I would call Sean a knockout artist necessarily. I don't know. I mean, he's won a lot of fights by decision. He's got some really good wins. He doesn't have as many good wins as Adesanya, but he's got some good wins, and he's an impressive guy. He's a good wrestler. He's got good jiu-jitsu. So he's got a lot of tools, but all he used in that fight, out of all the tools, out of everything he could use wrestling, he could use jiu-jitsu, he has all these things he can do. He beat Adesanya at his own game, but he didn't even kickbox with him. He literally just boxed the whole time. He threw a few kicks, he threw a few feints that were kicks, but he really didn't throw that many kicks. Most of what he did was throwing the 1-2, throwing his jab, and he did a lot of parrying when Adesanya was throwing a jab or throwing any counters, because Adesanya was trying to counter a lot and he couldn't seem to land. I've never seen anybody miss make Adesanya miss that much, ever. Yeah, so for him to go out there and do that to one of the best kickboxers the UFC's ever seen is insane. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, I still can't even believe it. But yeah, when I say simple, I'm saying all he needed was he used forward pressure, he used feints, he used boxing, basic boxing. He used just, yeah, basic boxing. It's all the stuff they teach you in boxing class that for some reason a lot of fighters just don't do. They just don't do it. Their footwork or their whatever it is. A lot of the basics in boxing, I feel like, get lost in MMA. Or maybe they don't even train boxing. They just train kickboxing. And I think that's why it's so important for fighters to train boxing. And for even just, not even just fighters, but people who just want to learn martial arts. Like, I think boxing is really important to learn. I think it's really, really effective, especially when you combine it with good wrestling and good jiu-jitsu. Like, if you give me a fighter that has good boxing, good wrestling, and good jiu-jitsu, to me, you have almost an unbeatable fighter, in my opinion. That is a recipe for success. I mean, we see it with GSP. GSP, what did he have that was so good that set him apart from a lot of other fighters? He had one of the best jabs we've ever seen. His jab was incredible. It's those simple things. Who cares if you can do a freaking flying armbar or whatever if you can't throw a nice jab? Who cares? Seriously. Nobody cares about your judo black belt if you don't even have good footwork. So it's like, I think these are just little things that have been maybe lost a little bit, like these little basic things like feints, parrying, throwing 1-2s and throwing landing jabs, throwing the jab properly. Those little things. I think that is the biggest thing that is kind of separating a lot of these fighters. Like, we noticed the same thing with Usman when he beat Gilbert Burns. His jab looked insane. His jab looked so good. His boxing, his basic boxing was really what won him the fight. We've seen this over and over again. So it's, yeah, to me, you get a fighter that has good boxing, that has obviously good kickboxing too, but good boxing, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, because even if they don't use their wrestling, even if they don't use their jiu-jitsu, there's a threat. They have a threat that, here's the thing, Adesanya in his camp was probably thinking, okay, this guy's going to try to wrestle, so I need to really, really work on my takedown defense. All the while not realizing that Sean on the feet is a freaking master. His boxing is so good. So good. His defense is incredible. So Adesanya's probably thinking, okay, this guy's going to take me down. He's going to try to submit me, whatever. So I'm going to work on all this stuff. And then here comes Sean, outboxes one of the best kickboxers ever to walk into that octagon. It's crazy. It's just crazy. It's really insane. And I think that has a lot to do with it because you're giving your opponent more things to prepare for. So even if you don't use the wrestling, like I said, and Justin Gaethje's another example of this. He doesn't use his wrestling, but he has it. And that is something that his opponents have to worry about. And even if he doesn't use it, they know, okay, if I make a mistake here, I could get taken down. So maybe they don't take as many risks because of that. And like Adesanya, he doesn't want to take Sean to the ground, even if, let's say, Adesanya was feeling spicy and he wanted to get his own takedown, which I don't think I've ever seen him do. Maybe he's done it once or twice. I don't know, but I don't think I've ever seen him take anybody down. But let's say he did. Let's say that was part of his plan. If he realized that Sean was going to beat him on the feet, maybe he wanted to take him down. Well, guess what? Sean's a black belt in jiu-jitsu too. So you don't really want to go to the ground with him either. So he's a dangerous guy. Sean Strickland is dangerous. And that was the one thing. And while I picked Adesanya, because here was my thought process. My thought process was Adesanya is going to win on the feet. He's not going to get taken down, so he's not going to have to worry about the jiu-jitsu. He's not going to have to worry about anything. I thought he was going to beat him on the feet. Didn't think Sean was going to beat Adesanya standing up. Did not think so. But that's what I was thinking. So for Sean to go out there and do that, yeah, that's crazy. I had a feeling that threat was there, but my thought was that Sean might wrestle with Adesanya. Sean might do something besides stand there with Adesanya for 5 rounds. That is, if you would have told me that, hey, Sean Strickland is going to go 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya and he is going to win every round. Because here's my thought. I think Strickland won every round of that fight. I don't think Adesanya won a single round. I don't think he won a single round in that fight. And I picked Adesanya to win. Like, I really like Adesanya, but I actually think I'm happier that Sean won. I just didn't think it was possible. I wanted Sean to win because I like Sean. And even though he says some off-the-wall stuff, and I think that Sean, he just doesn't have a filter. He doesn't, yeah, I mean, he says whatever he's thinking at the time. But I think he's growing a lot. And I think that we're going to see a more mature version of Sean Strickland, especially being champion. I really think we're going to see him evolve a lot, not only as a fighter, but just as a human being too. I really think that. And I think that Sean Strickland has something that a lot of fighters don't have. Sean, unlike Adesanya, for a lot of people is relatable. Because here's the story of Adesanya. Adesanya was a 75-5 kickboxer going into the UFC. So Adesanya already had a success story. He already had a huge success in his career in martial arts. Maybe not MMA, but he had a huge career in martial arts before coming to the UFC. And Sean Strickland didn't necessarily have that as much. You know, he had experience before the UFC, obviously, but he didn't have the credentials like Adesanya had coming in. So what Sean has, he has an underdog story, and that's what I love about Sean Strickland. He has an underdog story of not only winning the title, but even just making it to the UFC in general. Like, he had a tough childhood. He grew up with a lot of issues, and I haven't even really done a deep dive on like his whole upbringing, but I did listen to his episode with Rogan. And I think he has a relatability factor to him that attracts a lot of fans. Like, a lot of fans really like Sean Strickland because he's human. He feels human. He feels like a genuine person that you, in your childhood neighborhood, you would have grown up with a Sean Strickland in your neighborhood. That's what Sean feels like to me. He feels like one of the neighborhood kids that you hung out with as a kid. Like, Sean Strickland is just a regular dude. Like, he really is just a regular dude. And I like that about Sean. That's what I think a lot of people like about him, is that he isn't all polished and professional and corporate. He's just Sean Strickland. He's himself. And while, yeah, he does say some crazy things, he says some things that are a little off the wall, but he's being himself, and I think he is growing, and I think we are going to see him evolve and mature, and I think we're going to see a very, very evolved version of Sean Strickland, if he can hang on to that belt especially. And you know, it is kind of a concern for ESPN, the UFC, and all that kind of stuff to have a fighter like him so outspoken and doing all the things that he does, and in the press and media and podcasts. You know, he says a lot of crazy things, but I think he's going to evolve, and I think he's going to still be able to be himself, but I think he is going to lean into that a little bit in some ways, but do it in a way that's a little bit more accepted by most people. So I do think that he's going to evolve quite a bit, but I'm so excited for the Sean era, Sean O'Malley, Sean Strickland. This is really fun. So I'm really excited. Another event that took place this weekend was Gamebred Fighting Championship. Junior Dos Santos versus Fabricio Verdum was the main event, and it was an incredible card. Jorge Masvidal did a great job on this event. Dean Toole did a great job on the matchmaking. It was just, yeah, it was insane. It was a great Great event. The production was great. It was free on YouTube. They streamed it for free. Got like over 1 million views. So it was huge. And to compete on the same weekend as a huge UFC card, Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya, UFC 293 in Sydney, to compete with that on the same weekend and still get over 1 million views is pretty impressive. So I'm really, really excited. If you want to hear like my full breakdown on that, go to the Fight Bananas YouTube and check out my Gamebred FC post show. I broke down all the fights on there and kind of gave my hot takes and all that kind of stuff. So check that out if you want to kind of dive deep a little bit more into that event. But I do want to talk about a couple standout performances for me. I thought it was kind of a tie for me. I think the fight of the night, in my opinion, was Joe Penafil versus Joey Ruquette. Just looking back on the pictures from the fight, looking at the video, man, that was a banger of a fight. And I fully expected it because Joe Penafil, every time he fights, it is just fight of the night material every single time. He's always entertaining. I had him on my podcast. He's a super, super cool guy, but it was a fun, really fun fight. And it was the first round was close and it was fun. But yeah, Ruquette threw some nasty elbows and then he threw a body shot that dropped Penafil, and ultimately got the win in round 2. But it was a good fight. Like Penafil was cut really bad, leading up to that. And he was still in there fighting like such a dog. So yeah, that was a fun fight. And then the fight right after that was Brandon Jenkins versus Anthony Njokuani. Man, Anthony Njokuani looked incredible, and I think he's 43. Yeah, he's 43 years old. He's fought in UFC. He's fought in one championship. Now he's fighting in Gamebred. Man, he looked fantastic in that fight. His kickboxing is so good. So yeah, if you didn't watch that fight, he's now 17-13. So he's had 30 UFC fights, or 30 MMA fights. Gosh, I sound like casual. I train UFC, bro. Yeah, he has 30 MMA fights. So that was absolutely nuts. Yeah, that was crazy. And I think Brandon Jenkins and him are both based out of Las Vegas. Brandon Jenkins trains at Syndicate MMA. Here's the thing about Brandon Jenkins. He's got a hell of a chin. And he's been in the UFC too. He fought in UFC, fought in PFL, he fought in LFA. So he's been around the block too. Both fighters just, oh my God, that was an incredible fight. So Joe Penafil and Joey Ruquette and Brandon Jenkins versus Anthony Njokuani, both incredible fights. If you want to go back and watch those, you will not be disappointed. Yeah, there were some really good fights. And Joel Bauman, he ended up getting a TKO in round 2 against Maki Pitolo. Maki Pitolo is tough. He's Hawaiian, so he's got, that Hawaiian chin. He trains at Extreme Couture, and he's been on Contender Series, been in the UFC, he's been in Bellator, so he's a tough guy. Maki Pitolo, Coconut Bombs is his nickname. He's tough. And Joel Bauman just went in there and absolutely demolished him in the second round. So that was incredible. Joel Bauman, he's got a pretty big social media presence on Instagram, and he's very outspoken about a lot of things, which I think is really cool. I love when fighters are kind of just very themselves and they like to promote themselves and just be them. And I think it works perfect for Bare Knuckle too, because this isn't, they don't have that corporate feel that UFC has or PFL has. It's almost kind of an organization that I feel caters to the old school fans. The fans that watched Pride and watched the old fights when they had sponsors on their shorts and they had all that, I think a lot of fans turned away from the UFC, and I actually know people that turned away from the UFC when they started to get a little bit more corporate, when they did the all the deals, like the Reebok deal, the Venom deal, and all that kind of stuff. And it just looks more like a uniform. It looks more corporate. A lot of the old school fans didn't like that, so they kind of turned away on MMA. Because I think there are a lot of different types of fans. There's fans that bet on the fights. There's fans that they look into all the stats. They want to know who has the best striking accuracy, who has the best takedown defense, and they want to know all these stats. And I'm kind of in that camp, except for I don't bet. I just love numbers. I love stats. So it's just something I like to dig into. But and then there's also the fan that follows the sport, loves all the fighters, just happy to be there. You know, there's that kind of fan too. And then there's the fans that they want to be entertained. They want to see violence. They don't care necessarily who's fighting. They don't care if, you know, what the names are. They do want to have like maybe a couple big names on a card, but they'll watch the whole card. They're not going to skip the prelims. There is those diehard fans out there, but they just didn't like when the UFC kind of went more corporate. I think this is the perfect place for those fans to kind of have that entertainment and, you know, see fighters that they used to see in Pride. Fabricio Verdum used to fight in Pride. So to see these fighters come back, but not coming back in the UFC, coming back in almost kind of a similar atmosphere that they were in the early days of their careers, really cool. And seeing like Anthony Njokuani, he used to be in the UFC a while ago. But seeing him come back into, you know, this kind of environment, it's really cool. Another thing about the bare knuckle MMA is it makes submissions really interesting because, you know, think about it. You don't have gloves on. So kind of sliding your fingers underneath and getting, you know, into certain positions with your hands is probably easier without gloves on. So that's another thing to think about with, you know, a lot of these grapplers and submission artists. But the thing about bare knuckle is like it takes a special type of fighter to get in there. I mean, we saw, if you didn't watch the main event, Junior Dos Santos versus Fabricio Verdum. Fabricio Verdum cut his eyelid open in that fight. So yeah, that's what happens when you take the gloves off. The gloves protect you a lot from the cuts. And Joe Penafiel was talking about this on my podcast. He was kind of explaining the differences. And if you want to kind of deep dive into bare knuckle MMA and kind of get a little bit more inside scoop on like the Florida MMA scene, definitely check out that episode. Because he kind of gives a lot of insight on, you know, the differences between bare knuckle and traditional MMA. But yeah, it was crazy. I think Junior Dos Santos, he looked really good in that fight. Definitely looks like they don't, I don't know if they drug test in Gamebred, but it doesn't look like they do. I don't know. Which I think is great. I don't think it matters if they test or not in that type of situation. The same way that they test, like they probably test a little bit. I don't know what all the rules are, but they're not like USADA. You know, it's not like USADA where it's like super, super strict. So even if they test, I don't know how strict it's definitely not near USADA level strict. So, which I don't know, I think is cool. I mean, there's a lot of organizations that they don't test like USADA. I mean, USADA really is only involved with the UFC and then PFL now. But even before, like, PFL didn't have USADA, and you're probably going to see a difference with some of the fighters in PFL because of that. Not, like, accusing anyone of being on steroids, but they had a lot of fighters test positive for steroids, so I don't know. And maybe the reason for that is they're coming out of the UFC, going to a new organization, so they're probably thinking, oh, now I can hop on the sauce and actually get away with it. And, you know, and for a lot of fighters, it's mainly like a recovery thing too. Like, I think that's the whole thing with Conor is he's using steroids for recovery, I think, because I don't know how he's going to return that fast and not be worried about re-injuring that leg unless he's taking like some serious stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I don't really care what the fighters do, honestly. I don't know what my stance is on that because I don't know. I think it's good just for the fighters to know what they're dealing with. My problem is when a fighter is on steroids when it's illegal. That to me is my problem because then it's not an even playing field. At least if they're not testing, it's an even playing field. You know what you're getting into. Like if you go into an organization and they're not really testing, then you know, okay, my opponent could be taking XYZ. But if you have USADA, it's like, yeah, like you can't take really much of anything. So yeah, I think that like you can't even take like there was a fighter recently that got popped for ADHD medication. I knew that was illegal a long time ago, but I don't know. I guess it depends on like the timing of when they take it or something she was saying. I can't remember what the whole story was on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it just needs to be an even playing field. You know, if steroids are allowed, whatever, then go ahead and roid it up. I don't know. You can take whatever you want, but if steroids are illegal, don't do steroids. Like, that's not fair to your opponent. So I think it just needs to be fair. This is a fighting. This isn't the same as like baseball. Like, I get it. The stats, can be inflated because it's like, oh, well, that guy was on steroids. He was cheating. So his stats are irrelevant. And it's like, it's different than MMA. MMA, you're in there putting your life on the line. So you want to know what you're going up against. And if you're going up against somebody that's on steroids, you're at a disadvantage immediately. So it's not fair. So I think that it should, if it's illegal and a fighter's doing steroids, I have a problem with that. But if it's legal and they're taking whatever they're taking, I don't have a problem with it. They do it in bodybuilding, and so it's like, I don't know. I don't have a huge problem with it. I don't know if it should be legal, though. I don't know what my stance is on that. Because when these fighters get older, like Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Verdum, they're not spring chickens. Fabricio's 46 and Junior Dos Santos is 39. So, yeah, they're not the same as they used to be. So maybe, some juice for them. Hey, let them take it. They're going to be taking it when they get older anyways. They're going to be on TRT. They're going to be on all that stuff. So for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of fighters that aren't on anything, after they retire, like they don't hop on anything, but there's a lot of them that do. And, and I think that's what Conor's doing. I think Conor is probably taking something. I mean, yeah, I don't know. But here's the thing with that. I don't care. Like I said, I just want it to be an even playing field. So if Conor is taking something, then maybe, they do this fight with, I don't know. But the thing is, you can't take Michael Chandler out of the USADA pool. So he's going to have, he really is kind of at a disadvantage. But I don't know. I think it depends on what Conor is taking. Because if Conor's just taking things to recover, which that was like what Anderson Silva did back in the day. He got popped for steroids, but he was using it to recover. So anyways, I don't know how I got on this steroid conversation, but whatever. But anyways, Gamebred FC was absolutely incredible. I'm really excited to go to an event live. I'm working with Fight Bananas now. We're talking about possibly doing some in-person collabs in the future, near future, before the end of the year, hopefully, most likely, because I will be in Florida before the end of the year. So, yeah, I'm working with Fight Bananas. I'm doing their Dana White Contender Series post-show every Tuesday. I did the Gamebred Fighting Championship post-show, and I'll be doing some more post-shows coming up in the future. So, I'm really excited to be working with them. Go follow them, check them out. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Fight Bananas. And I'm really excited just for the future. I'm excited to go cover a live event in person. I've covered like some kickboxing stuff, but to cover like a Gamebred event or something like that would be really, really cool. So I'm hoping that I can do that in the near future. That would be really cool. The next Gamebred event is October 28th. Roy Nelson versus Alan Belcher. It's another heavyweight fight. Could potentially fight Junior Dos Santos, the winner of that. So definitely tune into that one as well. But that's pretty much all I got for you today. This weekend is Shevchenko versus Grasso, the rematch. So I will be covering that one on the next episode. I'm not going to do predictions for that one. It's not really that big of a card. So I'm not going to really do predictions. I will start doing predictions for the pay-per-views though. So I'll be doing kind of like the last episode I did. I'll be doing the breakdowns, kind of digging into the stats, going through all the fighters, breaking down, kind of maybe, comparing, different scenarios and things like that with, previewing the fights, basically doing breakdowns, predictions. So I'm going to start doing that for the pay-per-views, kind of getting a little bit more in depth on my content. And of course I'm always trying to improve. So you guys know me, I'm always making moves, but never let them know your next move. You gotta do it on the down low. So, just know that I am always evolving, guys. You might not see it right away, but you keep watching my stuff, you will see it continue to get better. and you will see the quality continue to get better. And yeah, who knows where this thing's going to go in the future. I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on right now. So definitely pay attention and keep tuning in. I appreciate all you guys for listening, by the way, and watching. Everybody's been really helping me out, sharing my content, and, you know, doing the deals with the live streams with Fight Bananas, doing the post show, the Gamebred stuff. That's been really cool, working with them, and I'm excited to work with them in person. So a lot of cool stuff going on, so keep updated. I'm back into training now. I'm training boxing for now, and then I'm gonna start doing, you know, hopefully some jiu-jitsu and stuff like that a little bit further down the road once I kind of get back in the swing of things. So that's exciting. I'm enjoying that. I'm training at ES MMA, so it's a really cool gym here in St. Louis. It's a newer gym, but I just started training there, and I'm really liking it so far. Yeah, so cool stuff going on. I'm excited for the future. I got some cool interviews coming up too. Like I said, I did the interview with Garrett Armfield. I've got some more really cool MMA people coming on. I'm not gonna say who's coming on because I don't want to jinx it, because that's always when you have somebody reschedule or stuff like that. But I have some cool guests coming on soon. So that's on my other podcast. Like I said, go to my Instagram, bre.eckert. That is I'll put my little handle on here, Bre Eckert. That's my Instagram. So check it out. And that's where you will find all the content that I am doing, so you can find it all in one place. So please follow me on there. And yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, listening, however you consume this. And I will see you guys again next week.
It's like time flies. And like, I feel like time just like kind of, like it was like I was at my debut, and then next thing you know, like I took a nap, woke up, and like I was getting ready for my second fight. Yeah, it sucked having those fights fall through, but shoot, I mean, like everything happens for a reason. Like,
yeah,
what if I would have went and had a bad performance my second fight out? Like, what if I would have been sick and went and fought and not would have performed? And then next thing you know, like, oh, that's like your second impression. Like now, like you're cut. Like, so like I really believe that everything happens for a reason, and I came into this fight like much more prepared. And like I didn't feel the like the jitters. Like I never feel that, or like the cage rust is what they call it. I just been like lucky enough to not have to experience that. Didn't have to experience that in that long layoff, and that will hopefully be the longest layoff I have of my entire career. Going up, don't look down.